People of France, for 15 centuries you have lived in slavery and therefore in misery. For 6 years you have barely dared to breathe as you wait for independence, for happiness, for equality.
Over the course of the year, we set out as a group to translate the Manifesto of Equals, written by Sylvain Maréchal on behalf of the Conspiracy of Equals. In our initial discussions, we quickly agreed that our job wasn't just to translate from French to English, but also from the 18th century to the 21st. We thought we must use this text as a canvas for our modern translation, a woven and textured piece, breathing patterns and living bodies. When translating a text, there are many things to consider, including the reasons that we are translating. Muriel Ganzel described translation as a hand reaching from one shore to another where there is no bridge. So we began to construct this bridge, stretching across the channel in order to understand how the manifesto, written in 1796, can still impact us today. Remembering that the initial intention of the conspirators was for the manifesto to be read aloud, we set to ensuring that our English translation would also have that same impact when it was performed and spoken. As a group, we discussed, debated, and acted out our translation, bit by bit. In examining the minute details at a lexical level and seeing the bigger picture simultaneously, we set out to produce a translation that would encompass the concepts and the demands of the conspirators accurately, while also staying true to the linguistic potency of Maréchal's words. This was by no means an easy task. How does one translate the word entrailles, or riche propriétaire, or le silence de la confusion? As you can see, translating isn't easy, but that's precisely why it is so important. To be able to understand the nuances and implications of every single word impacts how we interact with each other and our ideas. It has an effect on our past, our present, and our future. Just take a look at how the French Revolution and the ideas that drove it have impacted the world. Whether this be in Italy or Algeria, Mexico or Egypt, the ideas of the French Revolution caused a ripple across the globe, and this was only possible through the process of translation. Looking around us, we know that revolutions have not ended. Whether it is university teaching staff striking, railway workers, or the global Black Lives Matter movement, we can see revolutions taking place at every turn. The only way we could truly appreciate the need for translation was to critically translate the radical writings of the 18th century and then look at our world today. And this is what we produced.
I'm a master's student at King's, and I've been taking part in the Radical Translation project there. I'm going to read a section of the translation we've been working on from the Manifesto of Equals, which is a text that was written in 1796 by conspirators who tried and failed to overthrow the Directory, and these texts were actually used as evidence against them in their trial. So I'll just read a few lines. Equality has never been anything more than a fine-sounding legal fiction. Today, when we call for equality with a louder voice, the response is, "Shut up, you rabble." Real equality is nothing but a myth. Be content with conditional equality. You are all equal before the law. What more do you need, lowlife? What more do we need? Lawmakers, rulers, 1%ers. Now it's your turn to listen. So I think that this question of real equality and equality before the law is particularly relevant at the moment, at a time when BAME people are disproportionately dying from coronavirus in the UK, and police brutality in the US has sparked Black Lives Matter protests around the world. Reading and translating texts like these, and also inserting modern terms like, for example, we added the word 1%ers, reminds us that we're still dealing with the same inequality and the same issues that the revolutionaries were dealing with.
Real equality is just a myth. Be content with conditional equality. You are equal in front of the law. What more do you need, you lowlife?
One thing I love about literary translation is the sense of inhabiting the mood and atmosphere of the original text. Discovering the writer's distinctive flair, vocabulary and style, tapping into the different rhythms of the text, whether it's lyrical and flowing, disjointed and staccato. Finding ways in which to bring that textual universe to life in another language with a different set of linguistic convention.
Equality, first wish of nature, first need of man, core principle of all lawful association. Ever since civilized society existed, the best prerogative of man has always been recognized with no argument, but never once come into actual life. Equality has never been anything more than the fine-sounding letter of the law. And what more do we need? Lawmakers, rulers, 1%ers, the time has come for you to listen. We want real equality or death. That's what we need. And we shall have that real equality, no matter the price.
To hell with anyone who stands in our way. To hell with anyone who opposes an oath sworn with such force.
What's been really fascinating about translating the Manifesto of Equals has been trying to recapture that incendiary tone and the tempestuous energy following its oscillations between the explosion of rhetorical pyrotechnics, which call for an attack on the establishment, and then these more understated moments that rely on the appeal to reason and intellect, especially with such a political text where rhythm and sound play a fundamental role. It's been really interesting to think about how can we as translators recreate that powerful impact.
Translation for me has always been a very practical thing because I'm bilingual and it's just something that I've needed to do to get through life. However, this exercise with the Performing Revolutions workshop has shown me that translation has a very political edge to it. It's something that is more than just translating words, but it's translating and transporting ideas across the world and across borders. So when we ask questions about translation, it really does hammer in the idea that every single word is a weapon. It's so powerful, and it's not one that can be taken lightly. Not a single word. We had discussions for 15, 20, 30 minutes about single words just to try and find that one right word, the one that really hammers in the idea that the conspirators were really thinking, and one that makes sense to us living in the 21st century, one that we will hear this translation of this Manifesto of Equals and we can think about all the protests that are happening today and all the protests that we might have witnessed or at least seen on the news. And I think that's the most powerful thing about translation, and this workshop has really shown us that.
The people have trampled the bodies of kings and priests who had been in cahoots against them, and the new tyrants, the new stuffed shirt politicians who now sit in place of the old ones shall meet the same fate. And if all art must perish for real equality to remain, so be it.
One of the moments that really struck me is the image of the mass trampling on the body of kings and priests, this carnivalesque sense of political hierarchies being overturned and shattered, the shift in sovereignty from the absolutist monarchy of the Ancien Régime to the people of France. Le peuple a marché sur le corps au roi et aux prêtres coalisés contre lui. I was also drawn to the metaphor of the tabula rasa, of all cultural memory and historical reference, including the arts. There's something so avant-gardiste about this invocation of total rupture and effacing everything that's gone before. Périssent s'il le faut tous les arts, pourvu qu'il nous reste l'égalité réelle.
Lawmakers and rulers with more money than sense, spineless fat cats, you'll not stop our good fight by simply saying that all we are doing is rehashing the demands for land reforms made in the past.
We shall not waste our time replying to them, but speak to you instead, and say that the good fight we are organizing has no other purpose than putting a stop to strife and deprivation. Time has come for bold action. Evil mounts and mounts. It blights the face of the earth. Chaos, masquerading as politics, has held sway for centuries. Let natural order be restored. Let things be set to rights.
When equality calls, let all elements of justice and happiness come together and organize. Now is the time to found the Republic of Equals, a great shelter open to all. This is the day of reckoning. The selfish, the ambitious will shake with rage.
Those who have profited from injustice will now cry out against injustice. Lovers of absolute power, of arbitrary authority, will grieve over their haughty chiefs leveled by real equality. Their short-sighted gaze will not very easily reach into the near future of common happiness.
But what can a few thousand malcontents do against the joyful masses, amazed to find that the happiness that they had searched for so long was fully within their reach?
In a way, the workshop wasn't leading anything. The workshop was facilitating whatever we wanted to do. And often that was quite unexpected. So by the time it was time for our second meeting, there was a teacher's strike, which meant that we couldn't meet, obviously, because most of us were striking, and a lot of us had qualms about crossing the picket line. So what we instead did, instead of having our more traditional sit down in an empty classroom, seminar room, and go through the text like we would, what we did is we joined the strike demonstration at the gates of the college, and we read out bits of our work in progress translation at that point. And even though it wasn't finished, we'd only started on it and did a draft. Even though it wasn't finished, reading out your draft and lines to a crowd of something that is so historically important, and also realizing that it resonates with you now, was really fundamental in our kind of moving forward to get to that final stage of the workshop where we kind of finalized the draft and we finished it. And I think if we hadn't have done that, the translation might have been different.
People of France, open your eyes and your heart to the fullness of happiness. Recognize and proclaim with us the Republic of Equals. To me, translation is not only a way of opening up new paths of communication and refreshing them, but also a way of communicating with the past. So not only are you communicating with others and engaging in conversation with them, but engaging with a conversation with your past so you can find where you're going in the future and how the past has formed that.